The reason I go on the morning is because the morning is the time that we are most pure and in touch with ourselves. So even to take a few 5 breaths before moving in the morning, before touching your phone, before anything, and just how am I feeling?
Welcome to Unstoppable at Any Age. I'm Dr. Shauna DeRue, naturopathic doctor, master's athlete, and founder of a global movement helping women train for their future health. This podcast exists for one reason: to expand what you believe is possible with age. Each week I sit down with women who are redefining the trajectory of their lives, athletes, scientists, founders, and leaders who are continuing to build strength, performance, and momentum in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. Along the way, we explore the science of metabolic health, movement, and longevity, and the daily decisions that protect your brain, your body, and your future. Because how you move today determines how you live tomorrow. This is Unstoppable at Any Age. Today's guest is Cath Cowan, a leadership transformation coach whose work blends coaching, emotional healing, intuition, and deep personal growth. In this conversation, we explore the identity shifts so many women experience in their 40s and 50s especially, the unraveling of people-pleasing, performing, and perfectionism, and the powerful return to intuition and self-trust. This episode is a reminder that sometimes the most important transformation is the one that brings you back to yourself. Thank you so much for joining me, Cath. We've known each other for many years. I was thinking back at when we first met, when our sons were in preschool in Toronto, and there's been a whole lot of life and transition for both of us. So thank you for being here to have this conversation with me today. It means a lot.
I'm so overjoyed to be here to have this conversation.
I want to hear a little bit about your work because probably a lot of the listeners are not familiar with the type of work that you do. And you coach leaders and women through periods of transition and expansion. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I find it incredibly hard to find the exact words to articulate what it is that I share. And it's evolved over time. My roots and my foundation are with yoga and Reiki healing. So I have this really deep understanding of the energetic body, the emotionality and the mentality that goes into being a human and the human experience. And then it was about 15 years ago, I brought coaching into the mix. And so then all of this has formed kind of my own unique offering that I do put into the title of leadership transformation coach, but it's difficult to put exact words. So essentially, one of the things that I was blessed to be born with is a gift of really seeing people's truth and their light. And when I work with people, and the people that have come to me are leaders. So I didn't decide that was my niche market. They actually came to me. And as I look back over the span of my 25 years in this work, they've always been the ones who have come to me. But it was in a different capacity initially. So I hadn't associated it in the same way. And then now that it's a little bit more specific in that it's a more conversational modality of work, it has come to be even more obvious. And I really realize the power of what I offer for this community of leaders. So the work in and of itself is really individualized. There is some coaching, there is advisory work, and then there's deep healing and transformation that happens too. The people that come to me typically are in a moment of, like, they know that some growth or change or expansion is present for them, and they're typically really capable and can handle a lot, and are just realizing that some extra support in the journey is actually the thing that will move them forward into the next phase of things. What I offer is really different than anything I know of, because it isn't only mindset work. It's a really inside out support, and supports people with this. One of the best things I can describe, it's like really cultivates a sense of self-mastery and deep understanding of self, so that the clarity and the impact and the ability to move forward through the transitions is possible. It's tough to find all the words to say and describe what I do, but I feel that it's part empowerment work, part healing, part transformation, part advisory, part mentorship, part coaching. It's all of these things combined into a really whole thing. And I think where I've landed in this place is because with the work that was my foundation in it, is I really realize the whole that we are as humans. And we're not a bunch of parts. So to just work on the emotions or the feelings, or to just work on the mindset, or to just work on the body, we miss the opportunity to really see us all as this whole being, including mind, body, and heart. But then also we're this beautiful soul that came here to be, with the mission to be what we came here to do and to be. And that's part of the magic that I really light up within people and support them in embodying, so that they really can share that magic that they were born with the world.
Thank you. That was really beautifully put. So I know you said you couldn't find the words, but I think you did.
I try. Thank you.
So, one of the things I was really excited about talking with you about is that we've talked about this personally, that during perimenopause and menopause, during those 40s and 50s, and again, the exact age can vary, a lot of women go through major transitions in their life. And I think the hormones give us a little bit of a nudge or a big nudge about our lives needing to change, or kids are growing up, or relationships are shifting, or careers are evolving. So I just wanted to talk about your perspective on that, because for myself, there was a huge life transition and desire to not tolerate things that weren't fitting anymore, and to start to follow my heart more clearly. So I'd love to hear your idea of what's happening during that transition for women.
Yeah, I feel like it's quite layered. Now we're talking about it more than we ever have before. And so I'm not sure if it's ever more real than it ever was before, or if it's also in conjunction with this really beautiful opening and awakening that's happening generally also. So undeniably that there is a shift and a change that happens. But as this generation is going through this and it's becoming something we're talking about a little bit more, I think that there's an added release of the pleaser and the performer and the perfectionist, and these kind of identifications that have been heavily associated with being a female. And there's a different possibility that's available within leadership space and the workforce and all of these things available to women. And I feel as we have, and you are really knowledgeable on this more than me, but these hormonal shifts that happen, there's this. I remember turning 40 and people are like, oh, it's like excuse my language, but it's like a no give a fucks decade. There's a whole, anything's possible, and you just don't care anymore about saying no, or not fitting into the place that people think you should fit into, or say the things. So I feel like there's this real aliveness that hits in this part of life where we connect to our truth in a way, and the things that are no longer working for us are highlighted, including our default behavior patterns and belief systems, which then highlight what relationships and aspects of our life just are no longer serving us. So I think it's really special. I look forward to seeing how it is, my daughter, who's almost 15, how it is for her when she's at this phase of life. I'm fascinated and I'm super curious, because I know that every generation that has been at least historically written about, we just keep pushing, in modern age anyways, we just keep pushing the envelope a little bit further. And so I feel like it's ever more alive for us in this era where women empowerment and knowing we have a voice. And it was only, we only just got the vote. We only just left the household not so long ago. So how beautiful it is in the 2020s, in this time when consciousness is rising, and there's just so many. You talk to anyone in the In the leadership space too, they're talking about how much more earnings women are going to be having over the next decades, and everything is just expanding for women. And so I feel this big life change piece that is present is symptomatic of this. Oh, I matter. I don't have to please people. I don't have to perform to other people's standards. I don't have to be a perfectionist in X, Y, and Z way. I'm able to be with my joy and be with what fulfills me and be with what feels good for me in this life. We're so naturally, women are so naturally more intuitive and more nurturing and more caring and more thoughtful in a different with a different energy than men. I remember, I'll just say quickly, I remember early on in the parenthood journey, my husband and I were talking, and I don't know how I had the intuition I had. I don't know how I knew what my son needed. Our firstborn was a son. And I didn't know, but I did. And I said, I think it's something you can hone. I said this to him. I think you just can do this. And yes, I do think men are waking up to an emotional side that they may have not realized they had to. I think this is happening more and more also. But then he actually read this New York Times article that spoke about someone that was transitioning from being a female into being a male. And he spoke about one of the things that he missed as he transitioned, although he's very happy with his decision. But one of the things that he missed was that he lost his intuition in the way that it was before. So I just think we have this superpower and that we call it intuition in that way, but it's also this sensitivity, this tapped in nature. Now, I think what's happening in this age of life and in this era that we're living in, we're tapping into that for ourselves in a way that is newer and more allowed. And so I think that is then this permission slip to have these big transitions and to count ourselves in the mix.
No, that's so true. I think a lot of women, especially in the time where they're having children and growing careers, are not really putting themselves in the mix at all. We're praised for putting everyone else's needs first and hustling. And I know for me, it was like a radical decision to actually choose joy and think about myself. And I know I'm not alone because I talk to a lot of women week after week. And when that realization happens that you haven't been choosing yourself for a very long time, it can be really disruptive.
One thing you're just in what you said, it reminded me. I remember for a number of years, like my family and I would often sit, whether it be Mother's Day or birthdays, we'd often share what do we love, Mother's Day being what they love about me, but like birthdays, we had this tradition. What do we love about X? And that was one of the gifts that we give each other in our family is to go around the table and say what we love. And year after year in these days of celebration. It would be like that you're so thoughtful of everyone else before yourself. And at a certain point, I remember we were living in Costa Rica at the time because we were in the pool talking about this. And I said, you know what? I actually don't want you guys to say that again. That is not an admirable quality. I don't want that to be the thing that I'm known for. I want to be thoughtful and caring and loving, please. That is a part of who I was born to be, but not before myself. We're done with that. And actually, when you said that, it reminded me of that moment in the pool where I claimed that in my family. And so, fine, you can celebrate the traits that are part of my magic, but not that I'm a self-sacrificer because I don't think that's something to celebrate any longer. And I
No,
think
I think it's encouraged for a very long time as women, though.
for
And
sure,
yes,
and especially has been historically the thing, right? And this
yeah.
is what I think is so cool that it's actually changing in what you're saying is that when you are realizing, oh, actually, I can be with joy, that's one of life's most magical gifts that you count too. And the secret sauce of it all isn't it's like that's the other thing, how shameful it is to be selfish. I grew up thinking that. But actually, the most magical secret sauce is that the more we're thoughtful of ourselves and nurturing ourselves in those ways, the more we have to give our people and the more we have to give the world with the magic that we're here to share with the world. So it's like everyone wins. It's an everyone wins scenario.
Oh, I wish I'd known that a lot sooner.
Me
But
too.
maybe there was a path we had to go through to share it differently. Again, I feel like this perimenopause time is a time where a lot of women wake up to that, where it's the hormonal state creates a situation where you just can't do it anymore. And Again, for me, a big change there was that I couldn't hustle like I used to. There was an end point and there was a fatigue point, and there was a point where I couldn't sacrifice more of myself for everybody else. And that brings a lot of clarity, right? When you have to be very directed in your actions and very purposeful because you can't just push yourself to the breaking point.
Totally. I remember that change for myself too. And I think that's around the time I was in the pool telling this to my family, but where I was like, I just don't have the capacity to multitask or to do all the things that I used to have. And it was a very marked change because I just have always been a highly capable person, to be quite honest. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't have that same capacity. And it was the ticket to liberation in that way, because really an awareness of that, I think it's the most truthful moment, because I don't believe we ever had the capacity more than what we shift into the awareness of. It's just we pushed ourselves past what was actually the reasonable amount to ask ourselves of. And so I know for myself, this has been a huge decade. I'll be 48 in September. I would say, I don't know, maybe about 5 years ago, I can't pinpoint it, but roughly 5 years ago, I would say, is when I started noticing this different capacity. And it's been the most beautiful rediscovering of myself and this radical honesty of what's true for me. And it's also emotional, because then you're realizing you're able to uncover areas of sadness or grief in places where you overperformed or over supported, in a subconscious but very present need for to feel validated and good about yourself, because that's where it all comes from. And then so then new systems develop around like how you validate yourself, how you feel your worth, how you feel, you know, good enough, right? Because if you have any of those pleaser, performer, perfectionist tendencies, which I think is a huge thing that many people have, especially women, then guaranteed it was enforced from your foundational years. That's where it was formed. That's where your sense of being came. So yeah, we get to, this beautiful liberation ticket to be like, oh, I'm going to be radically honest with myself, who I am, what I'm here for, what my value is, what my worth is, without doing being more than just the truth of who you are and how wonderful that is. And so you fall in love with yourself, I think, in a whole new way, or have the ability to.
I love that reframe because what I see is that a lot of us get stuck in the feeling of exhaustion and overwhelm and then blaming ourselves for it instead of reframing it as it's like we're finally catching up to our true capacity without abandoning ourselves. So I really love that. Can you talk more about that? Because again, I feel like that's a common state that women get stuck in, that transition of feeling overwhelmed by everything and exhausted.
And this is because we're still in the loop of the old. And so we're judging ourselves for not being what we think is the measure of worth and value. And so this is where, like, the beginning, it's an emotional job, but also it can start with a bit of a mindset shift. I actually just shared an audio letter about this over the weekend, but this audio letter is the thing I share on Substack. I think this choice to, as you articulated there, but to deepen a little further, is that, I guess, going back one step further, we already know, we hear it all the time, that gratitude is this beautiful tool to use to elevate our mood, to shift into a more positive framework, to welcome in more abundance, whatever your thing is. Gratitude's this magic ingredient. So be sure you write down or connect to your 3 to 5 gratitudes every day. We have this already very familiarly in the field. But to take it one step deeper is to actually hold gratitude for even the challenging things, for the things that don't feel as sweet and wonderful. So if you're in a state of exhaustion, if you're noticing things in your body that aren't what they used to be, if you're feeling that you're underperforming or whatever those feelings may be, or noticing anxiety lift or rise or depression surface or these things that are all part of the body trying to regulate and connect to its truth and its like essence. If you take a pause and are just like, okay, I'm grateful that this is here. Like just even that statement alone creates this expansiveness of developing this magical double C's that I speak all the time of is compassion and curiosity. So if, let's say, you're feeling whatever, it could be a physical thing. I know for myself, like I continually have these physical things that show up, even like right now as I'm on this like call, I'm aware probably like I'm a bit flushed, so I'm aware of some things in my body that are shifting as a result of these changes in my body that I don't tolerate anymore in the same way. And instead of condemning the fact that my body isn't looking or operating the way that it used to, and what is the solution for this, and how do I navigate all of these things, instead it's thank you so much for showing up. And immediately when you make that statement, when I make that statement, I'm like, okay. So then I get immediately curious of, okay, what are the factors that could be catering to this and loving myself for not, for just, okay, I'm here in this moment and let's fine, work on a solution. Let's step into clarity. Let's ask for the support and the resource, like investigate the resources that can help me with this, but that it's not what's wrong with me. How can I fix it? There's something the matter. And the same with any of life's buckets. So it could be health, it could be relationships, it could be a parent's like illness, it could be finances, it could be work relationships or work dynamics that are going on. But as soon as you pause and say, okay, thank you for for this showing up for me, then you're like, okay, you have immediately this other lens of what is here for me within this experience so that you can look at it from a more honest place and the clarity of what's required to reach the solution and the place of more peace, harmony, well-being, whatever it may be, shines a little bit more. So this is something that I utilize all the time. And I think it's just transformational to just start that as the seeds. And again, really supports the unraveling of the performance, the perfection, and the pleaser.
Oh, I love that. So, yeah, curiosity and compassion. That's interesting because that's how I've reframed migraines for myself, is that they are my reset button. And if I am hustling too hard, I call it riding too close to the sun for too long, it brings me down. And my nervous system has a complete reset. I wear a ring that tracks my stress and things like that. So I see the data. And so I've turned my relationship to those migraines to one of gratitude because I feel like they saved my life,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Because I have a tendency to be an overdoer, and the migraine puts me in complete reset in about 6 hours. And then there's a bit more rest that has to happen afterwards for it to be complete. And then it's done. I feel fantastic on the other side of it. There's no migraine hangover. It's like the reset button got pushed. So now I start to read the cues a little bit sooner and pay attention to that over functioning or, yes, over pleasing, saying yes to too many things, that state that doesn't really do me any good. But it's
Exactly.
an interesting perspective shift for sure.
Yeah. If we start to receive all of life's, let us also receive life's incredible things as
Yes.
gratitude also and happening for you and all those things also. But it's easier for us to receive those things as soon as we can take all the challenges and difficulties that are in our space and have that shift. It just, yeah, creates so much more. There's just so much more space for love for ourselves. And yeah, the compassion and the curiosity is huge. And so then that's the first step to breaking free from these old defaults. As you just said, that your story is a perfect example of that. And so now you're like, oh, I'm noticing the data or the feelings in my body or the triggers of, oh, my schedule has been really full. I know when that. And so then maybe you can create the pivot to offer more rest and recharge for your body before you come down with that, like, painful event that the body is really screaming out to you, saying, "We're really for real here. We really want you to rest, please."
Yeah, I'm doing better with it. If I'm having a busy day, I literally lie down for a rest in the middle of it. I find that for me, that's the quickest way for me to push my own reset button.
Ah,
And I'm lucky in my current condo, I have these beautiful sunbeams that come on the couch or the bed. And for me, I'm like a cat. It's the perfect thing.
yeah.
Lie in
Oh,
a sunbeam.
sun is everything.
Yeah.
Sun is everything.
So you've mentioned the pleaser, the performer, and the perfectionist a few times. Can you talk a bit more about that?
About how they show up, or about their release of them, or about why they come, or what parts?
Good question. So about why they show up.
Okay, so here's the way I understand it is we came into this world, our beautiful, bright. I always say that the fact that we were born is our greatest success, and everything that we're here from that point onward to be is ourselves. And so our work is just to engage in life and the learnings here for us in that way that supports us in being who we're born to be. And along the way, especially in those formative years, we had influences in our life, even though they were doing their very best, that showed us when we were being loved, when we were doing it right, when we were accepted and received. And so that became this default, very subconscious operating system for how we engage in life in the world. And if you look at particularly women who are in their 40s and beyond at this stage of our human life existence, at least in the modern age, I don't know in the older times how it was. Like, I really am not sure. I'm curious about that actually. But from what we know, if you did what you were told, you sat still and quiet when you're supposed to sit still and quiet, you were kind and thoughtful and generous, and you did all those things that felt pleasing and showed how great you were and looked just, those were the things that were celebrated the most within that time, because it's also what our parents knew. And it's what they were, this all, again, their parents were doing their best. Everyone's been doing their best. But what's happened is that we're also in a much freer time where you just have to spend time with children nowadays. They do not have this authoritative model out the window. They know what they want. They know how they want it. They say what they want, how they want it. And it's just an entirely different being that's the younger population they exist in. And even I have a number of friends in their late 30s, early 40s, and even the way they look at life and the ownership they have for things and the permission they give themselves is, I'm like, I find it so fabulous to be around, because it wasn't what me in my later 40s was ever familiar with until they came into my life as friends. So then what happens, and especially in this window that we're speaking of, this perimenopause, menopause window, is like all of a sudden this operating system is expired as you start to connect in with these things. So these things that are such defaults, they then don't work anymore in this new OS that's trying to upload and trying to navigate. And that's why we just become so familiar with it. But so what's also beautiful in knowing its origin is, again, we can welcome in the curiosity and compassion to understand where it comes in. And then you can actually, being more conscious of it, you can actually create then the new patterns by way of the curiosity, the compassion, the gratitude. And you're like, oh, I see that, but now I can choose this different way of being. I can understand that this is just as worthy, and this is just as incredible, and this is just as desirable to be in these X, Y, and Z ways. Yeah, I think it's a really powerful thing to kind of go back to your primary caregivers as one solid example, and the way that you were really when you felt really accepted, when you felt really seen, when you felt really understood, when you felt really acknowledged. And typically that's the connection point, the tether point to these perfection, performer, and pleaser qualities that show up now and that aren't serving you anymore because you're now your own autonomous, beautiful woman who doesn't need mommy and daddy's affirmation of love. You can love yourself. You can be that for yourself and you can beam that out and then inspire that in others and let that be part of the gift you're here to share with the world.
Thank you. You said that so well. I think this is, again, a lot of the stories that women are getting more in touch with as they're stepping into their most truest self. And I like the idea of looking back with compassion and seeing our parents as doing the best, or caregivers the best that they could with what they knew and what they were taught, because that, again, brings compassion to both us and them.
Yeah, because it's not their fault. They didn't set out to kind of make you feel not your best at this phase in this operating system you're wanting to expire from. It wasn't the intention. It was just they did the best they knew how. And this is a huge tether to release also, because when we step into blame, when we stay stuck in the story of the past and the story of these relationships, what happens, and this is like those original relationships of our origin family, but it also like it then shows up in our present day relationships because we repeat the same patterns in our present day relationships or various themes of it that are here for us to grow from. We do this again and again until we've really become clear with it. This is a constant theme. I know I've really, Brad and we've been together a long time and we've had lots of evolutions of this theme in our own marriage where I'll find myself in a dynamic that feels familiar to something I was in as a child with my mom or dad. And I'll stop and be like, okay, I'm familiar that this is actually that because it's the point of contention in relationships. So it's the place also where then you don't feel seen, recognize love for the way that you want to be in your relationship. So it also creates, anyway, there's a whole ripple of dissonance that creates, and in some cases, it's awakening something that you're here to claim. And so create a significant relationship shift that's actually the best thing for you. And in other cases, there isn't maybe necessarily always the need for a change. And in other cases, because sometimes you can just be like, I'm going to own this and I'm creating this different relationship then or dynamic or response system within my present relationship. And if you have a partner that flows well with, or the depending on what the themes and aspects are, you feel you can make those shifts together, then that's a really empowering position to be in to continue growing together in your relationship. Everyone's story is unique. And everyone's soul journey is unique. So, what we're here to claim for ourselves, what we're here to own for ourselves, like the truth that lives within us some just looks different for different people, just like some of us, like how many children we've had also affects these things, like the type of partner that we're in connection with, the type of the way our parents were. Some parents weren't as extreme in some of these things as others. There's so many aspects to all of this and we're just all such unique beings, and this is like why these principles are general and I can share them here, but this is why like the work specifically I do is so individualized because it's everyone is in their own unique experience of their own human experience. This is such a it's just a wild journey for everyone in their own individual ways.
But also a beautiful one to start to look at things through a different lens. And I love what you said about relationship and willingness to go through these things together and communicate through the things that you're learning about yourself as you go, because that's not a static process. And if you've been with a partner for a very long time, those discussions are going to happen quite often. Because
For
each of
real.
you evolve and change and have different perspectives or different understandings about what you need.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be celebrating in September our 20th wedding anniversary, and we have a whole 10-year history before that. And it's our relationship has taken so many different forms. Like arguably we've had numerous different relationships even within our few decades together. It's not one marriage, I don't even think. We have to redefine it all the time.
That's great. It's wonderful to have a partner you can do that with.
I feel really blessed and grateful for that.
Yes.
And I know it's not everyone. And so I great appreciation for that.
I wanted to go back to intuition. If a woman has felt like she has lost connection with her intuition over time, how would you encourage her to rebuild that trust?
That's such a beautiful question. This is a theme that shows up in various different ends of intensity in a lot of the women that I work with. And so it depends on where you're at. But I think if I'm to create as general an answer as I can that would touch as many people as possible, I think it begins with the opportunities you give yourself to tune in to yourself. So, for example, you know, there is a lot of chatter about morning ritual and how important that is. And I get it. Our mornings start, and depending on if you still have children that you're caring for or the demands of your job, and maybe you're in different time zones, there's all kinds of scenarios that present. But the reason I go on the morning is because the morning is the time that we are most pure and in touch with ourselves. So even to take a few 5 breaths before moving in the morning, before touching your phone, before anything, and just how am I feeling? And just notice the body. That in and of itself is one of the very first beautiful tools you can engage in to start to awaken that connection to yourself, because your intuition never goes away. But what happens is the noise from the external world is so loud that we choose to tune our ear to that noise over and above the subtle, quieter but powerful, but quieter noise of the intuition. So that's the most important thing to understand too, is that your intuition's never gone. It's not like it disappeared. What disappeared is the mechanism for listening. And so that's why kind of taking these moments, and if it can't be in the morning, at least another couple times a day would be ideal, where you just pause and you're just like, how am I feeling? What's present for me? And I have cultivated, I call them journaling with soul prompts. I've added a new one recently, actually. So there's 6 of those. And I really love them for coming back, whether it's like you're coming back online with yourself in a new way to build intuition and connect to yourself, or also just you've come through a really significant season of busyness. When we go through huge, challenging chapters or hugely busy chapters, and we've got a lot of creation energy or survival energy present, we also often lose touch with ourselves in those chapters. So, again, these prompts are really powerful for getting you back in connection with yourself. It's a beautiful way to ground. I've been utilizing them, I guess, at least a decade. I think is when they started with 3, then they grew to 5, and then now there's 6 of them. But you can answer with one word or you can answer pages. So I'll just quickly share what those are, because I think they're a beautiful tool, and they're really simple and familiar for a lot of what you've probably heard before, but the formation of them I think are really powerful. So the first, we just love the gratitude. So I'm grateful for. The second is I feel. The third, which is the new one added in, I added it in this particular order, is what I know to be true is, then I desire, then I choose, and then I ask God, spirit, universe, whatever for. So again, you can just one word or 2 words answer. So like, I'm grateful for the sunshine. I'm feeling tired. What I know to be true is I can make an amazing day happen. What I desire is to complete that project today. What I choose is to take one step at a time. And I ask God for support in keeping me calm and present throughout the process, or whatever. It can be so simple, but that as a practical tool is also, like, to get more tangible, is really important. And a lot of people start to be aware of this loss of intuition in decision making. So another tool that is really helpful is to like to start to get you to like tune into what your body's truth is around things is whatever you may be wondering about, whatever the question may be. It could be a relationship thing, it could be a decision about work, it could be a growth pathway to open, or whatever it could be. But so before bed, you ask the question, like you're about to go to sleep, and then you say, allow me to see clarity around X or Y in the morning. And then you'll always be fed the answer to it and the feeling you have in its purest form first thing in the morning. And so that's also a really beautiful way to start to create this trusted loop with yourself, where you are starting to know that this incredible, wise woman that you are, this wisdom you hold so magnificently within you, is like powerful and present. And it's just a matter of tuning the hearing to listen to that subtler sound, that subtler voice, that subtler wisdom that is here with you. So I think that's the most important thing. It's not gone. It never leaves the house. It's just about tuning in to listening to that incredible wisdom that you hold.
Thank you so much. I will put those journal prompts in the show notes for anybody who didn't scribble them down fast enough or who was driving or walking as these came up, because I can see how they could be life changing. And I agree. Yeah, intuition doesn't go away, but when we're caught in the hustle, we stop listening to it. It's like we're
Sure.
too busy to pay attention to what our physical body needs, never mind the rest of us.
And what happens when we're in that loop of the performative, pleasing, and perfectionist, we're also used to listening to the external cues as the thing that inform our value and our worthiness.
Mm.
So that's another reason why that loop gets outside in as opposed to inside out. And again, as you just perfectly described, it's because we're like, is this good enough? Is this going to be the barometer of the outside? Is it the thing? As opposed to what is going to feel like actually the best for me? How will I be able to show up in a way that is supportive of my greatest light and self? It's a different operating system going from the inside out.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of choosing yourself is actually figuring out what it is that your body or your soul is calling for.
And it's not easy, but it's all possible. And it just comes with allowing yourself this presence and the choice to choose you, and knowing your magnificence is so what the world wants.
Is there anything else you would say to a woman listening who feels like maybe she's standing in the middle of a big change right now and maybe she doesn't fully recognize herself anymore? What would you want her to know?
Probably the first thing is how loved you are, how beautiful and magnificent you are, and to choose each day to do one small thing, at least one small thing that feels like it reconnects you to who you are, to the things that bring you pleasure, to the things that make you feel joy, to the things that are fulfilling for you, whatever that may be. But just, I think the biggest thing is that you're doing great, and this human experience can be hard sometimes. And you're so loved and you're so supported. And this is where the spiritual part comes in, is like you're not in it alone, even when it feels that way. And so when you develop this deeper connection to knowing that you're not alone, and whether it's God, the universe, spirit, Mother Earth, whoever, whatever other energetic force you connect to in this journey, is lean in there. Know how you're held. Know that you're so loved and supported. And also, you're not meant to do it alone. So call in support if it's needed, invest in yourself, and ask for what is required. And just know that you are like the engineer, like the architect of your own life. So the choices you make are really potent. Just be sure you're choosing things that will be the most supportive for you.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think a lot of women feel alone when they're in that state. So you nailed that one. I think we all feel like when we're going through a big transition or change that we're alone. And that's again what I wanted to have this conversation with you is that I speak with so many women who feel like nobody else is experiencing what they're experiencing, that we talk a lot about the physical changes that happen in our bodies in our 40s and 50s, especially. There's also all these other things going on that are common during that time transition, whether or not they're connected to hormones or not. And that was the big message here is that I do want women to understand that they're not alone and that this is part of our evolution as women at a certain age and stage. And yes, there is so much support out there.
So much. And this is also symptomatic of that thing that is collapsing where you feel like your worthiness and your value is being so capable and that you can hold it all and that you
Mm.
should because that's what makes you great. And this is part of what was the beautiful, again, getting curious and compassionate around that piece because it's not, we also are never meant to live as silos. So this modern world that we're living in is not actually the most supportive for us. So we're meant to have a community. We're meant to have the mothers and the aunts and the friends and the cousins and the everybody around. So how you can create as close to that as possible for and with yourself is a big thing to have get your people around you and pick your couple people, even one, just to be really radically honest with, so that you can feel like that you're not alone anymore too. And lean into this beautiful divine support that is just right here with you and just wants your support. I know, I think it was Michael Singer in his book, one of his books, I can't remember which one, he talked about God always being here. And the reality is that, like a friend, if you never are reaching out to the friend, you never connect with the friend, then the friend will just, they may love you forever and will probably love you forever, but they're not going to keep showing up for you if you're just never reaching out or never connecting with them. And God's like that. You call me here, I'm here for you. I'll be here for you as much or as little as you want, but let's develop a relationship and then I'm present. And again, use whatever word for God you want, but that's I think the way it works on the human and the divine level.
Okay. Breath. I want to let that sink in. The way that I always end every podcast with is what does being unstoppable at any age mean to you?
Oh, what a great question. I think being as radically honest and as loving and as truthful about who you are and sharing that you with the world. I think that's what helps you be unstoppable, supports you in being unstoppable.
I knew you'd have a different perspective.
I'm so curious what
Thank
all the
you.
people have said. You should write a book about all the people's statements.
There's something in the works.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm having the most beautiful conversations, and again, on all different planes, about how women age and our perspectives and our beliefs, and how to change some things that have been dropped in on us society through our society that maybe don't fit anymore. And everyone's perspective on what that means is just so unique. And I'm hoping that this conversation resonates with a lot of the people who are listening as another deep and beautiful viewpoint as well.
Thank you for creating this space. And you've always, we did more deeply personally connect when our boys were in preschool, but also I very first came to you before I got pregnant when I was like wanting to know about like how to do my basal temperatures or whatever and what I
Right.
make me the most fertile me I could be to be able to have an easeful flow into pregnancy, which I did, thankfully. I feel so grateful for that. And I just, the support that you've shared over the years, like with myself and countless women, is just absolutely incredible. And I'm so excited about this extension and evolution of the beautiful gift that you are and share with the world. It's really powerful, and it's just magnificent and beautiful and such a gorgeous extension of the expression of you. And so I'm so grateful to be in overlap with you and all the magic you share.
Thank you. I'd forgot that we met long before you had your first baby. I should have
Well,
looked up my data.
well, honestly, it was like obviously more memorable for me because it was such a beautiful gift to my journey and it was my memory to hold. But yeah, I just thank you so much. It's beautiful what you're sharing and the impact you're having.
Ah, thank you. And I so appreciate you being here with me today because I've watched your work and life evolve so much over the years as well. So, if somebody listening would like to reach out to you or follow you, how can they reach you? What's the best place to find you?
So I hold a presence on Instagram, Catherine Cowan underscore. I have a website, catherinecowan.com. And then where I share my deeper downloads and nuggets of wisdom is on Substack. I have audio letters on there that I share. I don't commit to when, but definitely at least every couple of weeks and sometimes more. It really just depends when the inspiration gets ignited, and I share really always from that place. So those are the three main ways.
Fantastic. So, I'll put all of that in the show notes as well so that you can reach out. And thank you again for being here and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much.
If this conversation expanded what you believe is possible, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. This podcast is part of a global movement called Women Who Move, helping women train for their future health through daily movement. You can join us at drshaunadaru.com. Because strength isn't behind you, it's built through what you choose to do next. I'm Dr. Shauna Daru, and this is Unstoppable at Any Age.